She was just doing her job, quiet, invisible, the way society often expects her to be. But when a wealthy man decided to turn her presence into a cruel joke, something shifted. What was meant to embarrass her became the spark of an unforgettable moment, one that left an entire room stunned. Was it humiliation or the beginning of her triumph? This is the story of how a so-called joke revealed something far deeper about power, dignity, and respect. Her name was Angela. To most people, she was just the cleaning lady, someone who came and went quietly, tidying up the messes others left behind. But outside the uniform, she was so much more. A proud mother, a woman of faith, someone who carried herself with quiet strength, even when the world tried to make her feel small. Every morning, Angela caught the same early bus, her hands rough from years of hard work, her smile gentle but tired. She had learned long ago that people rarely noticed her until they needed something cleaned, carried, or fixed. To the wealthy families she worked for, she was invisible, present, but not seen. So when the invitation came, she almost didn't believe it. A dinner party at a millionaire's estate. Why her? Why now? There was no reason a woman like Angela should be expected at such a place. And yet, someone had made sure her name was on the list. What Angela didn't know was that this invitation was never meant to honor her. It was a cruel joke, a setup designed to remind her of her place. But Angela was about to walk into that mansion, completely unaware that every eye in the room would soon be on her, not for who they thought she was, but for who she truly is. Angela's heart pounded as she stepped through the tall iron gates of the estate. The mansion glittered under golden lights, its glass windows reflecting the wealth inside. She smoothed down her simple dress, one she had carefully chosen from the back of her closet. It wasn't designer, it wasn't new, but to Angela, it was dignity. As she entered the grand hall, conversations slowed. Crystal glasses froze halfway to lips. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. A hush swept over the room, the kind that wasn't admiration but judgment. Whispers carried quickly, sharp and mocking, as though her very presence had disturbed something sacred. Who let her in? A voice muttered. Is this some kind of joke? Another whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. Angela kept walking, her chin high, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. She had cleaned houses like these for years, scrubbing floors she was never meant to stand on as a guest. And now, standing beneath the chandelier's glow, she realized they weren't welcoming her. They were waiting for her to falter. The host, a tall man in a tailored suit, forced a laugh that echoed too loudly. He gestured to Angela as if she were the night's entertainment. "Ah, everyone," he said, his smile dripping with cruelty. "Our special guest has arrived." Laughter rippled through the crowd. It wasn't warm. It was sharp, cutting, the kind that stung worse than silence. Angela felt her face flush hot, every eye piercing into her like daggers. Still, she moved forward, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. But the cruelty didn't stop. A woman in pearls raised her glass and said, "Darling, did you forget your mop?" Another man chuckled, adding, "Or is this the new help?" Each word was another weight pressing down on Angela's chest. Inside, anger boiled, but so did something else. Resolve. They wanted her to shrink, to run, to disappear. But she refused to give them that victory. Angela took her place at the edge of the long dining table, where a seat had been left empty, as though mocking her. She placed her bag gently on the chair, lifted her gaze, and looked straight at the host. For the first time, the laughter faltered. Something in her eyes, steady, unbroken, sent a ripple through the room. It wasn't what they expected. It wasn't what they planned. And in that moment, Angela realized something powerful. This night was no longer just their stage. It was hers. The laughter had reached its peak when Angela stood. Her chair scraped loudly against the polished floor, silencing the room for the first time all evening. Every mocking eye turned toward her. She could feel the heat of their stares, the smug anticipation of a crowd waiting for her to break. Her hands trembled, but she lifted her chin. Slowly, she reached into her worn handbag, the same one she carried to every cleaning job. A few guests snickered, certain she was about to embarrass herself further. But when she pulled out a framed photograph, her daughter in a graduation gown, the room shifted. Angela's voice, steady but sharp, cut through the tension. "You see me as your joke, but this," she held the photo high, "this is my pride. I've worked every night, every weekend so she could stand where none of you ever imagined she could. While you laugh, I rise. While you mock, I build. And tonight you may see a maid, but tomorrow you'll remember a mother who refused to bow." The room froze. The host's smile faltered, the cruel amusement draining from his face. Guests shifted uncomfortably, their laughter strangled into silence. For the first time, Angela wasn't invisible. She was undeniable. But the silence wasn't victory. It was pressure. Eyes burned into her, some with shame, others with anger. The air thickened as if the walls themselves rejected her defiance. Angela's chest heaved, her heart pounding so loudly she thought they could hear it. And then, applause, soft at first from one end of the table, then another, until the clapping grew louder, bolder, scattering the last echoes of ridicule. Some smiled. Others lowered their eyes in guilt, but the sound filled the hall like thunder. Angela didn't. Ooh, she stood tall, holding her daughter's picture close, her presence unshaken. For that moment, the power no longer belonged to the millionaire or the guests. It belonged to her. And yet, deep inside, she knew this wasn't the end, because once the lights dimmed and the crowd went home, society's judgment would still wait outside those gates. The real question was, what would they do with the truth they had just witnessed? When the night finally ended, Angela walked out of the mansion with her head held high. She hadn't planned to make a statement, hadn't come to fight for dignity, but that's exactly what she had done. In a room filled with wealth and privilege, she had forced them to see what they tried so hard to ignore: her humanity. For Angela, the sting of their cruelty would never fully fade. Those whispers, that laughter, the way they looked at her as though she didn't belong. It was more than one night's insult. It was a reflection of a world that too often devalues women like her, workers like her, people who don't fit into the narrow frame of acceptable in the eyes of the powerful. Yet, that moment of silence that followed her words, the ripple of applause that grew into thunder, it proved something too. That truth, when spoken with courage, can shake even the coldest rooms. That dignity, when held on to fiercely, is stronger than mockery. Angela went home not as a victim, but as a reminder. Racism hides behind laughter, behind casual cruelty, behind the comfortable walls of privilege. And it survives when we stay silent. But it can be confronted, it can be exposed, it can be challenged by voices that refuse to bow, by people who choose to stand tall, even when the world tries to shrink them. This wasn't just Angela's story. It's the story of countless others who endure the same quiet cruelty every single day. The question is, when will we stop treating these stories as exceptions and start confronting them as the reality they are? Because until we do, the laughter won't stop. The question is, will you?